everyone. Welcome once again back to the iConis podcast. And thank you for tuning in as always. Remember, like, subscribe, and share. Don't let the show be a secret. I am one of your hosts. Podcast, Harry 3D. Cardi, you know the name, you know the joke. Okay, we good. We got it. We out the way. On my side, as always, the man, the myth, the legend, my cousin, and also one of my best friends, the one and only
Rod C. Good day, good afternoon, good morning to everyone. We got something for you today. We'll get to that in half a second. We'll get that in half a second. What do we normally do now? What do we normally do? Manner maketh man. Let's go.
It is Make It the Man. So we're going to jump right into it. So first and foremost, you got to remember, support the shows. That we support the shows, support the books, support everything. That's what it comes down to. So you got to go to your local comic book stores. So one, you got to check out Wow Comics out in Kitchener. You got to go and check out Chex Wings out here in Montreal. And of course, coming around near it, and unfortunately, A Hero's Tale. They will be shutting down this week. So please go out there, check out anything. Everything's for sale from comic books to figurines to tables and chairs. So to our buddy Andrew, thank you for the support. We're supporting you and all best on your next journey. Okay. On top of that, if you want to find where I'm going to be, you can check out my website at barry3d.com. That's barry3d.com. And you'll find where I'm performing next as my stand-up comedy shows and anything even pertaining to this show and more. So check that site out. On top of that, if you too want to have a podcast, you can go to Podbean. You can find all our past shows, all episodes on iconis.podbean.com. All right. Good to know. Now, Ron, where can we find you real quick, man?
Oh, as I say, you can find me on the World Wide Web. You can find me on Instagram at DJ Rod. Sorry. You can find me on Instagram at, Mr. Rod C. Did I just do that? I think I did. Instagram at Mr. Rod C. Let's make sure I said it right. Instagram, Mr. Rod C. You can find me on twitch.tv/DJ Rod C. You can find me on the world of TikTok at DJ Rod C1. That's DJ Rod C1. Let's go.
Right on. Now, before we go any further, also remember that we, are also part of the Subculture Podcast Network. So it's our show along with 5 others. Please go and check out the Subculture Podcast Network. Tell them you heard about them on iConis podcast, and they will be happy to jump on board with all we're doing. And I keep forgetting sometimes to plug. We have a WhatsApp channel. So if you go to WhatsApp and you look up iConis podcast on there, you'll see we have some postings on there. So please join there. Another way to communicate with the fans, and always leave your comments. Keep them positive. Let's have some fun. Okay. And if you need a graphic artist for any work that you have going on for a personal or professional project, there's only one man and one man you should turn to alone, and that man is
J Bird Digital Art.
Mr. Jason Reese, J Bird Digital Arts. You check him out. You tell him you heard about him on the iConis podcast, and he will give you a work. Right. God, who are we talking about today on the iConis podcast?
We will be talking about the haunted tank. The haunted tank. What's that? You're about to find out.
We're gonna learn today. So the Haunted Tank is a comic book that came out in GI Combat. Now, why we talk about the Haunted Tank is not because it's just a cool and obscure comic book thing. And of course, you want to know about obscure, you got to check out Larry Reclosato's Facebook page, Forgotten, Obscure, and Underrated Characters. Don't forget, play nice. It's also Remembrance Day, or Remembrance Month as we like to do it. So we're doing a whole focus on all the war comics as much as possible during this period of time. Least we forget, so Canada remembers. There we go. So Haunted Tank came about in GI Combat issue number 87 back in May 1961. Almost a Gemini. Maybe it is a Gemini. We don't know. There we go. The comic book was created by Robert Hittinger and Russ Heath. So these are 2 creators behind the Haunted Tank. Now, the whole premise of Haunted Tank is it takes place during World War II. You have a tank crew of a jigsaw mishmash tank. They got pieces from different, tanks that were there over in Europe. They kind of put it together on a frame and said, okay, here's our tank. So it looked, almost like a traditional tank. But of course, if you pay more closer attention, it had pieces from different ones. Now, this tank was a lot smaller, so it was a lot more maneuverable, but it didn't have the power or the armor as the bigger tanks. But it survived all its things. Now, when we say haunted tank, we don't mean the tank is haunted. It's going around with a ghost crew. No. It had a full-out American crew that was inside the tank that was running it, but they were aided by the beyond, by a spirit. And this is what brought about the whole Ghost Tank through in this. Now, GI Combat comics, they ran for almost over 200 issues, and GI Combat was almost like DC Showcase, but really
Hmm.
focusing on war stories. So a lot of characters that we talk about or haven't talked about yet and will eventually have appeared in GI Combat as their stories and debuts. And then, of course, they would either have ongoing stories within GI Combat or they would spin off into their own single series as time went on. Okay, we are good. So, you know, that was their first appearance was in issue number 87. We get into the origin of Haunted Tank in issue 114 of GI Combat, which explains it. So what's Haunted Tank? What's the Haunted Tank? Very simple. You have your crew. So you have your crew, and the main guy on the crew, who was the leader of that group, well, his name was Jeb. Jeb, you say? Ding 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 ding. I know I make the jokes all the time. Jeb was, as is the, he had his friends growing up, so he used to read all these war stories about his great 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 grandfather and descendant, which was Jeb Stewart. He was himself a general in the army during the whole Civil War that was going on, and he was, let's say, he's Mister The South will rise again. That's where Jeb was, and Jeb was, Jeb Stewart, General Jeb Stewart
Hmm.
from back then, wartime hero for the South. Let's not get into the beliefs. This is where the comic was made. We are a sense that we know things have changed, and we're not trying to be insensitive. We're just retelling the story as how it was portrayed when it first came out. And he lived, he died, and then his descendant would read his stories. And as a kid, he would go out there and, kids would play, as I said, cops and robbers, or at the time, cowboys and Indians. Once again, we're being sensitive. So we're just telling you what they were playing. And this is what he grew up with. So current day Jeb, well, or I should say young Jeb, not General. So we'll refer to General Jeb Stewart as General, and then Jeb as the current captain of the Haunted Tank. So Jeb read stories about the general, and the general turned around and inspired him because he liked his exploits. Maybe not so much what he stood for, but he was brought in and enamored by the action that would happen on the battlefield, how he would outthink his enemies and tactics and so forth. So then he would read these books, go out with his friends, and then play outdoors. Remember, kids used to play outdoors? With his
What's
friends.
that?
That was that exactly. That is the sun. Okay. When it goes down and you see another ball comes up, that's the moon. That means you should have been home for supper. Okay.
Hmm.
So, the street lights are on, have your butt at home. And he would go and reenact those stories and play with his friends. And as they've gotten older, World War II came about, and he decided to enlist in the army. And he convinced his three other friends, to enlist in the army on top of that too, along with him. So they all went to the same training facility. They all joined the tank regiment. They all wanted to work together, so they didn't want to be separated. And this is where it comes in. And on one of their earliest, I guess, outings or missions, they were being chased down by this big German tank. They were outpowered, outgunned. And at one point, they're trying to get away, and they slip down a ravine, and 100-foot slide down, and all of them unconscious, stunned. But sure enough, while the Germans are closing in for the kill at the top of the hill, the turret of the tank turns around and shoots while the German tank gets within range and hits like in the underbelly, causes it to explode. And then everyone starts reviving. It's like, oh man, Jeb, you're amazing. Well, what do you mean? Even when you're half dazed, you still got the turret to turn around and take the shot, saved our lives. And he's like, no, I was with the rest of
That,
y'all.
that
I
that
was
wasn't
dazed and
me. I don't
confused.
think that was me. No,
Uh,
no.
that wasn't me. It wasn't me. It wasn't you. It wasn't you. It wasn't you. It wasn't. So, and then Jeb started hearing like some voice or a laughter. And he said, you guys hear that? And they're like, hear what? Okay. Got a ringing in my ear, eh?
Hmm.
And this is how the story started. So now in the first appearance, we just know things happen. He's heard something, but you don't see anything. It's unexplained. that's the introduction into the haunted tank crew. But have you glanced at any of this or looked up any of the haunted tank stuff?
So I did just to to research on this storyline. I admit I haven't heard of this particular IP at all prior, and
Mm.
it was interesting. It's definitely interesting, giving a different concept of a haunted tank. Okay, so what's the story about it? I definitely do like the connection of, you'll find out later on, with the connection definitely between the ghost and the sergeant, who's the lead of that particular infantry, and the camaraderie of him and his friends and everything like that. Like, literally, they're like a good. A, I love that this aspect of the history showing that they're friends, but they're like brothers. That basically you knew from prior to them actually going out as a unit, that they already had a connection, they already had a unity prior, and it's a great thing that you can just see that. Okay, we can see it in the story when the story starts to unfold. But yeah, Haunted Tank was definitely a different type of IP that I said, okay, let's see what's this all about. But it definitely gave you some good insights, again, just like the last one. It gave you some insight of how it is to be in a team, on an infantry, being at war. Basically, the writing definitely gave me the good understanding. Like, okay, I can start to see what it pans out. So yeah, Haunted Tank was a very very unique IP, and I personally did like it.
Cool. Yeah, and for the concept of it, I think the concept was interesting because, you're going back to 1961. They've had horror comics, they've had war comics, and this is kind of a good mix of both genres at the time.
Hmm.
Because both would sell. So it's like, hey, they sell separately, they should sell together. Transform. All right, I'm joking.
Right.
And this whole thing, it's this is what caught me. So, the fact that, okay, it's taking place during a real event or a real time that we can stamp in real locations that we can say, okay, relatively figure that out where they're going to be. Their journey, they started off in Germany, they've had across Europe and Africa at some points. So they've gone over multiple adventures, and it's that's what I find is really interesting. So let's get
Hmm.
down to it. So now what it is you have the two guys, the two, Robert and Russ, turn around and created this character, this not even character, this whole concept, put it together, got it out there for general comment. Different, interesting, yes. Then what's touchy is, okay, they went with Confederate General J.E.B., so Jeb Stuart, and in the afterlife, how did this now get attached? So Jed Stewart in the afterlife, he's approached by the ghost spirit of Alexander the Great. Yes, that Alexander the Great from history, Cleopatra. Let's go through this Roman Empire, and he says you need to go back. Your assignment is to go back, and we're assigning you to be the guardian angel of your descendant. And at first, Jeb's like, I don't want to do this because he's looking at his descendant. So the general is looking at Jeb, and the
Hmm.
general's like, wait a minute, I'm Confederate through and through, and my descendant is a Northerner. Now, if you know your Civil War history or general Civil War history, it had brother fighting brother, it had father fighting sons. Everyone had their views. That's what it is. So the general still has that mentality, but he's been assigned to go back to help out his descendant, Jeb. So the general fine begrudgingly agrees, goes back, starts doing this, and then he gets caught up by saying, hey, he's using certain tactics that I remember. And of course, now Jeb can't see the general, but the general can see Jeb and he's able to hear him. And over time realizes, like, hey, he was a fan of my tactics, my strategic, mind.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm not keen on him being a northerner, but I'm happy that he's at least he acknowledges me and I've influenced him some way. And he seems
Right.
to be a great warrior. So over, they bond over war. I mean, regardless of what side they are on, with their ideology, together, the common ground is their family and
Hmm.
also he respects him as a warrior and he's going to try to help him out in this. And it's really, take away the general. If you look at Jeb with the rest of the Haunted Tank crew, every time they get into a situation, it is a David and Goliath situation. Either they're heavily outgunned, outmanned, overpowered, outnumbered, and they have to persevere over this whole thing. So it is a true, at the bottom of the line of it, David and Goliath. It's situations they shouldn't be in, that they shouldn't win, that somehow, just by being smart, are able to walk away with a victory.
Right. It's basically looking at it in the sense like, the odds are against me type of environment. That is basically what Sergeant, the descendant, is always in that type of, not saying purposely in that predicament, but because of his outfit, he's a smaller class tank. He is considered the littlest, the runt of the litter in that sense. That group always get downplayed and spoken down to in the beginning. Definitely always got spoken down to from the other drivers of the tank, of the other tanks, of the other units and everything like that. They're like saying, "Oh, look at these guys coming. Hope you guys can keep up with us." And we can hear you from a mile away, clickety clank, because it's such the tank was literally a small unit, but it had a different purpose, and no one else understood the purpose of that particular tank and why it was there. But the great thing about it, you get to see how useful that tank was, how useful that team worked together. And again, because now General Jeb realized, like, oh, you're using strategies. Okay, I may be in the cavalry, and I was riding on, horses and all that, but I can see that you're using my tactics. There may be hope for you yet. And that's it.
Maybe hope for you yet. Absolutely. So I'm sorry. I know he said he tried to enlist his friend, so I'll correct myself. So he tried to enlist his friends, but of course he went there and he got into he went with the Fort Nelson. So he went and did the tank training over at Fort Nelson. That's when he got into it. He got assigned to the tank, and he met over some other people. So he met over so Jeb was a tank commander. He met Arch Asher, who was the loader, Rick Rollins, who was the gunner, and Slim Stryker, who was the driver. Which is funny because Jeb is the only one that has more of an authentic name. Like in comic books, all the time, it's the double letters, right? It's Lena Lang and Lois Lane. And even though it's a CK, it's Clark Kent. It still has the CC to it. You know what I mean? You get the odd ones like Bruce Wayne, who is different, but Peter Parker. Everyone has that first letter, last letter. It always seems to have to match up. So Arch Asher, double A. Rick Rollins, double R, Slim Stalker, Slim Striker, it's double S. You know what I mean? Come on, man. Right? So when they finally get assigned to the tank and they realize Jeb's their commander, they look at Jeb and they're like, wait a minute, we're not keen on you because you share a name with the general, from the history. We don't feel that way at all. This whole South Shore Rise Again business. We are Northerners, it still has a little bit of those roots. It has that pride behind it. And they're like, no. And he wins them over. So as the stories go on, at first, the first inkling is Jeb is hearing the general at one point. He hears the laughter. There's situations he can't explain. As time goes on, he actually sees him. He sees him, but no one else sees him. It's like, guys, you see, and the general would show up in his Confederate uniform with his sword out on the top of a horse. But the only person that can see this would be Jeb. Jeb was the only one that could see his descendant, the general. The general would give advice how to get in and out of certain situations. And the rest of the crew would think, well, Jeb is crazy because he's talking to what he calls spirits. We don't see anything. But every time we listen to him, we come back home with a victory. We come back home. So here's the thing. Would you rather follow a madman and come home unscathed, or turn around and say, well, he's talking to himself again. Doesn't make sense. We're going to do things our own way and come into more of a risk that you don't make it back to base. You don't make it home. Like, this is true wartime. So they made a decision consciously to say, yeah, he's crazy, but his ideas have saved us time and over again. So we don't care if he's talking to himself, to a so-called ghost. We don't care if he's talking to whatever he's talking to. Just keep delivering those strategies that get us home
Yep.
safe and accomplish our missions. Done. Now, at one point, yes, they turn around and then Jed put up so the Jed put up a Confederate flag on the tank to, make the general happy. Yeah, and once again, we know what the flag implies, and I know the show you're looking at us going, okay, all right. But we just wanted to cover this because there's a whole point to it. So we got into this, and now have they been around for many years? Absolutely. GI Combat, as I said, ran for over 200 issues, and the tank, as I said, was made up of so many different pieces. I'm not a tank person, but there's other videos out there that explain, what the turret was, what tank it should have been on, the gun that was on there, where it should have come from, the body of the tank. It's from, as I said, it's a mishmash of tank pieces. So there we go, and then this is what I want to get into.
Mm.
I like that everything should happen with a discussion. If people have a difference of opinion, we should talk it out, right? Like, do you agree with that, Rod?
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely.
Yeah, so that's what I'm going with. So we know the general has his opinion and outlook on life, and Jeb himself has a different one. Now, people with two opposing opinions have a common goal there is to get home. So one is to protect, one is to get home. So the general's protecting Jeb, Jeb is protecting his crew. It's to get
Yep.
home in one piece. That's the common thread.
That's a check right there.
So two opposing opposites working together to achieve a common goal. Okay. Now, the only reason we're being extra sensitive about it, because I said years ago, people read this and didn't think much about it. I know today it's a different story. But now, can you imagine the stories that could be written about it in today's terms?
Right.
And I mean that in a positive way. I don't mean that as a negative way at all. It would. I think that these guys, Robert and Russ, turned around and created this whole crew, which I feel there's a lot more unsaid that can be said in a great way to portray some common messages overall, show the differences, opinions, and I think it would make the stories a lot richer. Like, conflict makes rich stories.
Mm.
Yeah, all right.
It'll be interesting to do that nowadays because it throws a different light on what everybody is thinking, from the different aspects of it. How often do you have not an opportunity, but how often is there a scene or a medium that will show something where you now have not only two generations, but like this would have been, if that's Jeb and then Confederate, so probably like his grandfather. You know what I mean? You're looking at least 2 or 3 generations of a difference. And then, as you said, General Jeb has his mindset, because that's what he passed away, of course. But when he passed away, this was the type of individual he was. He was that particular type of individual. And now he's interacting, seeing from a different standpoint, his lineage, and he's like, whoa, from the north, I don't know if I'm up with that type of scenario. But you can see that he actually layer by layer started to pull away and seeing that, it's going to have some type of common ground and be able to grow some type of a relationship. You know what I mean? An understanding of someone at his time would be on the other side of the fence of of his beliefs of the time.
Exactly.
So this will be a good a good medium, a good IP in a sense to kind of like, bring back in a sense, just to see. There has to be a point. Anyway, we're not going to get into like that kind of conversation, but I'm just saying, ability to see that, what? Two sides can come together. Two sides can see each other and basically try to learn off of each other. And that's how I would think of it.
Yeah. And I agree with you on that one. So let's jump back for half a second. So I was looking at my notes and I was trying to find it. So at one point the tank does get destroyed and they rebuild the tank and, you know,
Hmm.
and the tank has multiple different pieces. So, I mean, here's one of them that I found here so far. So the tank has a modified Russian T-34 hull. So that's the hull of the tank, right? Uh, suspension system and a Russian Y2 12-cylinder diesel engine of 500 horsepower. So I'm just finding these online here.
Yeah.
The nearly 15-foot track gives this rolling jigsaw puzzle excellent traction and is capable of speeds of up to 21 miles per hour. So for a tank, that's pretty much quick.
Right.
So that's just one thing. It's just show you how this tank go together. So it wasn't like a Sherman tank. It wasn't, a tank and they just said, okay, this is what it is. It reminds me of a cartoon. There was an anime called Dominion Tank Police. And in Dominion Tank Police, right, it's an anime, and they had these big tanks, and they're, of course, police officers. It takes place in the future. They had
Hmm.
their tanks, but then there's one crew come up. There was this little itty bitty tank. I mean, only had space for two people in this tank, and they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna use this tank." The tank police is like, "Wait, we got a six-wheel beast over here. You're gonna use this little two-seater?" But let me tell you something. It was a little two-seater got into all the places those big tanks couldn't get into and had a whole range of adventures. So if you
Listen.
look at that anime, The Minion Tank Police, you'll see what I'm talking
Okay.
about. It's got humor to it. It takes place in the future. It's wacky. It makes no sense and it's fun. It's a fun ride. And
Listen.
this is where
No.
Haunted Tank
Go ahead.
brings
Go.
me into this. Yeah, Haunted Tank brings me
Yeah.
into this. So
Gotcha.
let's get into some of this. This might be uh, quick here. So what I would like to see because
Hmm.
as I said, they have a lot of adventures just exploring the relationship between the general and Jeff. The relationship, trying to show how his teams are. How can this go deeper? And it might kind of lead into our
Yeah.
fan cast and stuff like that. So I'll start off for what I would like to see. Like, well, Rod, do you see this coming back? How would you like to see this coming back? I know this might be a shorter video, but I still wanted to cover this IP.
No, no, for sure. No, no. Listen, I would actually, like I said, initially when you brought this and brought it to the table, we're going to talk about it. Okay, great. And I was like, you know what? Let's see how this can pan out. Because I wasn't sure how I would plan this out. By reading enough of issues and just got my head wrapped around, I'm like, okay, I can see there's something here, and you will just have to modernize it type of scenario. But I can see this actually, I can see this probably working. And and I'm here debating if I want like I think I might just have like a movie because to me it would be it was in oh in glory in oh my gosh, one with Brad Pitt. I was about to look it up for it. Inglorious Bastards.
Yes.
So it gives me like I can see that would be the closest one that anybody, if someone want to at least say, huh, what would that be kind of like close to what? That'll be Indigenous Bastards. Oh, sorry, I'm here
Right,
just
right.
trying to curse so
Yeah, I
much.
know you're doing the Quentin Tarantino. Yes.
Yeah. Um, but that movie, if you ever get a chance to watch it, I found that movie interesting because you're just now seeing the mindset of, again, like I said, it shows you what was going on and how you would have conducted yourself if in the time of war and out on the field you're the first line, or you're the infantry type of platoon. That's crazy stuff. Now I will say, I also want to see this live because there's a couple of stuff that happened. um there's a couple of the situations that happened, like Barry was saying. There was a time where they were going basically like the David and Goliath type of scenario. So basically,
Mhm.
imagine it was basically like not say it was a recently deserted town, and you just basically having they were told to go ahead. The platoon is back again. They're the smaller, quicker ones, so we want you to go ahead, scout for us, and then let radio back and let us know, can we come in or proceed or whatever the case may be. They go in, then they find themselves surrounded. Basically, find out there's like four, four, four tanks, fuller
Mhm.
size tanks, and basically they took them out by basically being strategic, understanding. Okay, you're coming at this corner. I see you here. I can quickly put you in reverse and get out of harm's way. By the time, you know, the barrel turns in that direction, he's already gone. Knocking through a store, basically, or a house, basically, you get behind another tank, shot him down. There's a whole bunch of small little tactical moves that they were doing that I like. Also, the reason why I want to see it live, I want them to we saw a particular action. It's been done. If you saw the movie A-Team, they did the same thing. But now I can feel rest assured that Haunted Tank did it first. Was the episode when the tank was thrown out of the airplane and coming down in the parachute?
Yes.
Exact same thing that happened. But these guys are smart. They didn't even make no type of reaction to the last minute. They realized we only got one shot. And at the last second, when you came in review, shot down the plane. It was hilarious. And I'm thinking, oh, that's the A-Team. That was the A-Team move. That was nice. That was cute. That was very cute. So I would love to see that in live. You see it in scripted in comics. I would love to see, especially for a couple of those two things, a couple other tactics too, where I'll just say that it was so smart in the sense they're going down by some forests, whatever the case may be, and had the thought process to drive into like a wooden area, and then drive over to another side of the road, like a one-sided road, come back and brush off the tracks when they're coming out. So if a plane was watching from above, I see the tracks are going this way, we'll come down here and start bombing that side. When these guys prepare, knock them out the sky. All right, down the road, let's hide out again, and we'll catch the next person. I was like, yo, very smart. But all that was done by the general. General gave him the idea. I'm just having fun hearing that you can now have all these tactics from before to now. So basically, all that babbling to say, I want a live one. I want a live one. That's it. I'm done. That's it. I'm done. No more. Oh, was I supposed to say who I wanted? Oh, you want that right now? Okay.
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. All right.
I'm done. I'm done. I ain't saying nothing. I'm done.
Okay. All right. All right. So here you go. So I agree with you. So yes. Do I want a live action? Yes. Do I want it as a movie? Yes. Can it rock and work up to now? Absolutely yes. Now here's a couple of things I want to kind of look at. So
we got change it, modernize. I want to modernize. I'll modernize it to give it a different type of feel.
You're bringing it to modern times.
Yeah. No. No. I will bring the tank up to modern times.
Right.
But still have the general. Still have the South General from back then. So I'm putting even a wider gap.
Oh,
I want a wider gap. So at least in this sense, this comic book was again 1960s. So you're talking about Vietnam, not Vietnam, but in that time frame. I want 50 years. So you're now to this time 2024, 2025, but you still have the ancestor from the Calvary time. That would be the nice. You could start to see the dynamics of two different mindsets and how they can work together and see each other as, oh, you know what? You're not bad there, grandson, great grandson. I see what you're doing over there. All right, I see. Keep going. Keep the family alive. Let's do it. You're doing good. I'm right. So I want a deeper distinction. So it just makes it easier to then when you start to see, and of course in the comic books, Jeb talks. In the beginning, he does his little riddles, little quotes, and whatever the case to be. But later on, he does have more conversation. But I'd rather have conversations closer up from the beginning, so you can start to hear what General Jeb's mindset is and how a type of person he was.
Yeah.
Having a conversation with someone of this day and age, and then you can start to see maybe there might be some tension, but then you start to realize, let me help you and work out. Oh, I see what you're doing, grandson. That's a great idea. I didn't even think of doing that, but I like what you're doing. Gramps, I like your idea. Thank you very much. We're going to move like you. Let's go.
Right. So you threw me for a loop. That's okay. All right.
Yeah. I think I definitely, because for me also as well, we already have Glorious Ambassadors type of movie.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Now there's no ghost, of course, unless there was a ghost on set that we didn't know about and they didn't write it in the script. We don't know. Go back and watch them some 3D glasses, see if you see a ghost. We'll come back to that. But at least I would say let's have a modern one with a pull from back in time, and then have that and see how that builds from there.
Okay.
Can we get more than that? I don't know. Depending on, and I'll be saying, depending on the writing, and depending on now we're talking like studio. Let's if people like it and we can pull a second one, great. But at least I would just say I'll put everything in the first one, and just take it to the hilt and just say like this is all or nothing. All chips in, and then you realize like, oh wait, I got one more chip. Bam. Bet on black.
Put it on black.
Okay, I'm done.
Jeez. Okay. Wow. You went deep to the roots on that one, cuz. All right. So, wow. Well done, sir. Touche. Touche.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
here's my thing. So when I said live action, I was going really more traditional in keeping it within World War II tank because I like the look of it. I like your idea, and that's amazing. So that's how I'm seeing it. I'm saying World War II, same crew. Let's get them all together. And I know you're not changing the crew. I know I'm not saying you were changing
No,
the
no,
crew. I just
100%.
think if you put it like in 2024, 2025, I'm keeping it in World War II era piece so we can get the costumes, we can get the technology and all that is used. Still that divide is starting their ideologies is different. Here's where I think I'm going to get a little bit more grim with that. So because it's going to be haunted tank, anytime he's in the tank, things get a little bit more hot. Maybe they change the color of the film and make it a little more intense to portray that, and the urgency, the action, everything they're going through, the pressure they're under. When we get into General showing up, it's very classic. Okay, I see a ghost, no one else sees a ghost. But how do you make that more appealing? And the way it is parts of the movie. We're gonna see Jeb seeing the general and seeing his crew, and he's like, "We're good, guys," and the crew's like, "Sure," because the crew's point of view when it comes to their narration and their interpretation. So Jeb is seeing the action. He's seeing his uncle. Sorry, he's seeing his descendants. So you see Jeb seeing the general, but from the crew's standpoint, they don't. So now, at times when Jeb is not paying attention or he's not around, and the other three crew members are talking among themselves, there's got to be a conversation about, do we follow him? Does he have battle fatigue? Is it, now in today's, we understand, mental health. Even though it's been around forever, it's been labeled more and identified now. People still recognize gaps in people's thinking or mental health. It just wasn't fully named. So, with the lack of understanding of mental health back then, as opposed to now, it still makes a story in itself of, does a crew almost mutiny against him? Do they see him differently? Knowing that so right away he's got an X because his name is Jeb after the general. He's got an X because he seems kind of crazy. Like, you wouldn't fully follow somebody. So the early stories, later on stories, they still question him, but they're like, hey, we did 10 missions together. We came home safe in 10 missions. But how do you get past missions 1, 2, and 3 with someone you think is crazy and he's your commanding officer? So it's almost like Apocalypse Now, that opening scene where the general says, in Apocalypse Now, it's like, yeah, boys, we're going surfing. And they're on the beach and gunfire's coming their way. And he's walking in a pair of shorts, one of his hats, a cigar. And he's walking out there like, oh, you like to surf? Let's go surfing. It's like, sir, we're being shot at. So are we seeing signs of battle fatigue, mental health, mental breakdown happening with Jeb? And how does his crew react to it? Because I know in the comic book, it's like, he sees ghosts, he commands people. They might say, is he crazy? And they go on with the story because that's the lack of it. Now we can get a lot of more in there. Right. And then you gotta turn around and say, well, who do you see? Oh, I see one of my descendants. You guys don't see him? No, who are you seeing? Who are you seeing, Jeb? I'm seeing the general. The General Jeb. He's General Jeb's sword. He's a Confederate soldier. Hold up. We are
So
fighting for the good old US of A, and you're seeing someone from the Civil War who fought on the other side, and we're
yeah,
following you and you're following him. There's a lot of emotion and that's going to be impacted in that and thoughts and ideology even back then. And he's got to kind of not look crazy in his front of his men, win them over, instill confidence, and still respect his guardian. And then his guardian still has a story to tell because the thing we overlooked that I mentioned at the beginning of this episode is Alexander the Great. Where does Alexander the Great come into this, and why is he appointing Jeb as the guardian? So why is he appointing the general as
fair.
over the guardian as Jeb? So there's three layers to this. There's layers to this story. Jeb
Oh
and
yeah,
his crew,
no.
Jevin
Hmm.
is and the general, and then the general and Alexander the Great. And how does that make sense? And is it truly, let's say, why would it be Alexander the Great? Is it someone else pretending
Okay.
to be Alexander the Great in the afterlife that is assigned? Yeah, we've seen like demons and angels. They change and for ulterior motives. So is it the
This,
Spectre? Could it be the
I
Spectre?
was about to say this is basically, if you want to bring it into a little DC world, that would be the best way of just saying we visually see that is Alexander the Great until like the last two scenes, or the last act, or half of the last act before the movie's done, and all you see is Alexander, and all you see is start like to phase out and phase in, and we realize, wait a minute, I know that guy with that from the arrow hat. Ain't that the Spectre? Done. Clip. Done the show. That would be hilarious.
Right. So a lot of stories. So can we get some good action sequences out of
Oh
this
yeah.
movie? Live action with a smaller tank, mishmash, finding bigger tanks, World War II. That on the top visually,
Yep.
we can get some of that. But then the psychology is where the selling point is, along with the supernatural aspect.
Got it.
That's the selling point. It's your bread and
So
butter.
100%. And this is why, this is one of the reasons why I wanted more modern. I didn't say it, but I definitely, if it comes time to writing, you'll write a little more in depth.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
definitely I agree with everything you're saying in the sense of trying to figure out what is going through his mind from their point of view. Because now at this point, if it's modern, you're now looking at, okay, if I'm gonna make, this is showing my age and everything like that, MASH, then we bring in Sydney, we call it the HQ, and we got, if you watch MASH, if you remember the guy with the mustache and the little beard, Sydney, he's a
Yeah,
psychiatrist, he
yeah,
comes
yeah.
in. So you bring Sydney in that sense. So basically at this point now, back then you wouldn't have anybody coming in trying to talk to you. They would just think you're kind of like, we got to watch out about Jeb. And then someone may come in and try to pull rank and pull him out. And that's going to be it more easier to do it then. You may try to fight the conversation, or have the conversation, try to fight to stay, but it'd be easier to say, you're going to listen to your superior back then to say, all right, Jeb, you're out. What? You're out. We'll get Arch. Arch, you're driving now. Go. That's it. And then to me, it's kind of halfway. You get some good writing to get there. I think now if we try the same concept with newer, like in modern times, now you're like saying, okay, we need a psych eval, and basically now Jeb is now have to play the typical trope of, I can't let them know that I see you, General, right in front of my face. I know. Did you see anybody? Of course I don't see nobody. We're talking about. Go back to the boys. Listen, the general's telling us to do this. HQ, he's still talking about the general again. Now you got to see what's the tactics that Jeb has to go through to make sure that he doesn't get reprimanded, written up, get pulled away from his platoon in that regard. To me, there's going with your talking about layers. I think it's much more intricate of doing that with a modern one, because now he knows, Jeb would now know modern. Afterwards is PSD. Yeah, PSD. But
Yes.
he didn't have it yet. So now
No, that's right.
So normally you'll have that type of conversation afterwards because he has PSD. You're
Yeah.
still in it and you're having that. So now they're confused, like saying, "Wait, normally, and anybody, please, accept my naivety. I'm not saying this properly. There probably is a proper terminology for saying it, the person in the middle, but I'm gonna say that they're gonna probably write it in that saying you don't have you have how do you have PST? You just got out here. You're still on your first tour. You haven't left. You haven't left and
Mm.
gone back or whatever the case be. So now he now has to try the balance of trying to look proper in his commanding in his to HQ to his commanding officers and still be able to fulfill his duty, fulfill his task of being the lead of this unique team, be able to do what he has to do to be an intricate part of his army of for his country. So
Right.
that's why I prefer having it more modernized because
Okay.
now it's easier to accept. We now as viewers would know there should be some type of layer of that. It may not
Mhm.
get deep into it, or you will realize back then they didn't have a proper category to dive into that. So certain things was like they probably should have gone there, but you know they're gonna brush it over. Here now, it's gonna be harder to brush over, so they're gonna have to go into it. And you, as the receiver, knows like, yeah, I know what they're probably gonna start thinking that I'm doing. I now got to be 2 steps ahead of them. I gotta try to outsmart them to
Mm.
stay at the point, to stay on point, so I can still be out here and doing my duty.
I like it. I like it. So that's why I'm saying this can go a lot of ways. So now let's
Yeah,
get down to the brass incident.
got
Who
it.
who would you? And I'm not sure if you did both, but let me see. Did
I
you
did both. I did
fan
both. I did
cast and
both.
did you do both?
I did
Okay.
both.
All right. So
I
me
did
and you
both.
on. All right. So who would you fan cast as Jeff and as the general?
As a general, okay.
Yes.
So as the general, I wanted someone that has portrayed that character to a certain degree. Um, if you remember, what is it? RIP PD
YPD. Yeah.
RIPD.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you know who I'm going with? I'm going with good old Jeff Bridges. You listen. He did that character also well. Listen, when he played Roy, and again, he was locked in his particular mindset of how he was, but towards the
Yes.
end, he softened up. He softened up. So he
Of
already
course.
knows how to play that that you know type of individual who just say, you know what, I this is what I was brought up on. This is how I am. We're good to go. I can. I'm a cavalry to the day I die, which he was, which he did. But now he's going to interact with someone newer. Because basically, if you want to look at it in that sense,
Wow.
RDP, RDP, RIPD was similar in that sense. Because Ryan Reynolds was a newer Judd, and he literally had
That's
to like,
right.
oh, let
Okay.
me get a little similarity off of that. I'm like, oh, okay, I can see what that is.
Touche, sir. That's a good analogy and call out right there. Wow. Okay. All right. So then, okay. So that's your general. So who would be? Yeah. Who would be the
The
lieutenant
Judd.
commander?
Okay. So I wanted someone who just like, when you see him, you realizing, okay, you can be a rough type of individual who just give me that roughness and still be, people will respect you and they're like saying, okay, you may look like people might think you like, but you are not worthy. So I wanted to go with Jamie Bell. So Jamie Bell, he some may not recognize him to a certain degree on certain shows and stuff like that. The closest I can say, if anything, if you remember the second reboot from Fantastic Four, he was Ben Grimm. He was a thing.
You
So
are killing it tonight.
I'm trying, sir. I'm trying. I'm trying to keep up with the big boys. I'm trying to keep up with you and the big boys. But yeah, I think I would like. I think I would like it because he had that rough grit. Now
Yeah,
you expect that. It was there in the comic books. He was there in the comic books, but I definitely wanted to. When you see him, you like saying, "Yeah, you pull up Jamie Bell right now. You see he got a love scruff look kind of scenario already. Yeah, throw a hard hat on him, kind of, you know what I mean? Put him in some fatigues, and then yeah, that's it.
I'm shaking my head in
I
disbelief
think I
because
could
that's
go
a
with that.
great pairing. You, wow. Okay, Beckett's in for the win. He's well, okay. What, sir? Okay, all right then. I'm gonna try to sell my pair.
Ah,
I'm sticking with it from the chest.
okay,
So you started off with the general first, and then you went with Jen. Okay,
yeah.
so here's my thing. The two actors I'm going with to play the general and Jeb have worked together, have great chemistry. They are working together right now, and if you kind of put their outfits a little bit differently in these roles, I feel we would be on something excellent. What they're doing
Okay.
right now is amazing work. I'm selling this as much as possible, and there's no punch to it. So the two actors I picked are on the show right now, Superman and Lois. The general, the general is Michael Cudlitz, who plays Lex Luthor.
Yeah, I just yeah. That
With
that
how he's
makes
looking right now on Smallville, with the beard, like he's going bald, you know, then growing his normal hair, and you put him in costume, physically, he looks like he's ready to go to war. As Lex, like
hmm
he's doing right now here in this last season of Superman and Lois, phenomenal. Like as Lex, it portrays the anger, the intensity, the leadership, all those skills. And if you looked at his other roles when he was in Walking Dead, and he was playing a soldier that was keeping Eugene alive through that whole thing. Okay, that's who I'm going with. Michael Cudlitz as the general. Now, as I said, the follow up to that, who would be Jeb in the tank during this war piece, would be the actor who plays John Kent, who is
Oh,
Michael Bishop.
hold on. Oh, oh yeah. I didn't have my seatbelt on for that left turn. That was a hard left turn.
Michael
I
Bishop, right? So he took over for the other actor that was playing John Kent. In
yeah.
this season, they finally gave him his powers as his dad. He played the fireman. He picked up that role, so he played the fireman. He's kind of pitching in for Superman now that Superman is back and he's a little bit weakened, so he's doing it. But Michael Bishop is doing great work this season, last season as John Kent. He's got physique. He's got the look, the intensity, the eyes. He can sell this role, and because of what I've seen him in just in this series alone and the different story arcs he's had and what he's had to portray emotional wise, from his highs
hmm
to his lows, dealing with disappointment, trying to sell people, trying to be a leader, having his insecurity on certain things, overcompensating. Michael Bishop is knocking it out of the park. I mean, this whole cast, I think, is doing a great job with the story
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
giving
yeah.
on CW for Superman and Lois. No, I'm not saying that they are doing phenomenal, even though CW gave them budget cuts. Okay, but they're doing great, and the writer's doing great. But Michael Bishop with Michael Cudlitz as
Mm.
Jeb and the General, that is a pairing I want to see been right there and all that. So that's for
Wow.
sure.
Okay.
Yes, and
Okay.
they've had a couple of scenes together so far in the
Yeah.
Superman and Lois show. This is who I would like to see on the same, one's a ghost, one's in a tank. Let's go. Give me my movie. Let's go. Let's do this.
Okay. Okay.
Because
That's
keep in
I don't
mind,
know,
soldiers
honestly.
back then were very young. When you were
No, no,
enlisted in the
100%.
army, you were like teen, right?
100%. 100%. I will admit, I was not I just thought you were gonna go with Tyler. I thought you were gonna go with Tyler Hoechlin. Like Clark?
No.
I just
No,
that's where my head. So when you just did that hard left, I'm like, I did not see that. I don't know why I didn't think that. I thought you were just gonna have an
people
older,
were listing at 17, 18, right?
100%, 100%. Like I thought you were just gonna go, well, let me just keep with Tyler because at least the same, because especially in the last episode that we saw, yeah,
Uh,
that was some grit. So I'm like, oh, you're going there because of that? I would take touche. No, retract that touche and double touche with Bishop. Okay, Mr. Michael Bishop. Okay, didn't
so
see
it's
that.
Michael and Michael that I'm going with. Michael Cudlitz, Michael Bishop.
Yeah,
That's who I'm going with Jeb and
M square, M square.
General.
Okay, gotcha.
M
M
squared,
square,
man.
M square,
You
M
know,
square.
it's a game. The show's coming to an end. Like, come on, yeah. Keep it going, please. It's so
No,
good.
no,
It's
no.
so good.
Yeah.
But that's who I'm going with. Yeah, and that's it. Very, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
He's got the
no, that's
physique.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, definitely. Definitely for the general. Definitely, I could see that. Um, having having the young person in that sense, being the leader and everything like that. That will be as long as I guess all his other what is it, Arch and other ones are in the same age bracket. Then yeah, that definitely will.
Right.
That'll be cool. Okay.
Yeah. And once again, you can just go back to that CW pool and pull out those actors that would be able to be the rest of the tank crew in there. But the focal point would be, Michael Bishop, Michael Cudlitz, and the CW has brought out phenomenal actors to the forefront to a lot of our fans, or fans, period. But we're aware of some
Hmm.
of these actors and other pieces, and some of them we were. So it's great to see them in this light. So that's who I'm going with. That is Haunted Tank, everybody. Least we forget Remembrance Day. Thank you very much to the soldiers that fought for our freedom out there. Rod, any last words?
Listen, thank you for being with us. Hope you enjoyed what you heard. Hope you like what you saw. Definitely this is a great IP that, again, one of those little ones, those little gems that you just like, what, we're giving it a little clear, give it some life to it and realizing it can live. Keep going. You're doing good type of scenario. Make sure you hit some comment. If you like what you saw, make sure you write down in the comments, let us know what you thought, go from there.
Excellent. And on this, remember, like, subscribe, and share. Don't let the show be a secret. We really appreciate all your feedback and your support, and one click really means a lot for us. And on this note, this whole world was started by a pencil, a piece of paper, and lots of imagination. Keep on dreaming. We're out. This one's for you, Sean. All right, man. Peace.